Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Diversity is Lit Book Club. We are here to discuss our June LGBT Pride Month pick, which was Lavash at First Sight by Taleen Voskuni. Ooh, I like all the tabs you've got, Vanessa. So we will be talking spoilers. So if you're okay with that, you can keep watching. If you don't want to be spoiled, because we'll be talking about the ending and all that stuff, then click out, finish reading the book, and then come back and join us in the discussion on the replay. But if you don't know me, my name is Holly. I'm the author of A Diamond Bright and Broken, which is releasing November 5th, 2024. Been coming up with some fun reels on Instagram. That's usually where I'm at, so you can follow me there. And I also just came out with a newsletter, and usually I give more like life stuff. So I was talking about like the car accident I was in and all that stuff, and shared pictures that I don't share on Instagram. So definitely follow me there. But anyways, I am excited to talk about this book as always.
I'm Vanessa, go by Vanessa Read Books. On all my platforms, I write fantasy, paranormal, and horror, and also nonfiction and some poetry. And yeah, excited to dive into our discussion.
Yeah. And then I'm Alicia, which is I am excited to talk about this book. I am typically outlined for the I wrote poetry. I'm just looking forward to seeing the next one discussion.
Yay.
So now, just by my background, like
I like that it's sunny there because we just had like a torrential downpour, and I think it stopped, but it's very overcast here. So that's when I say I'll be the sunshine.
Yes, of course.
But so for our trigger content warnings for Lavash at First Sight, we have a toxic work environment, racism, and difficult family relationships. If anyone has any other ones that they found, feel free to add. But it's not the long list that we're usually.
I was just going to say, it's kind of nice to have like a shorter.
It's very short. With everything going on, I needed a nice, like, no nonsense. But anyway, so everyone is linked down below, all the co-hosts, so please give them a follow. And so our first question is always, what are your general overall thoughts on the book? What would you rate it on Goodreads or otherwise, star rating? So is anyone jumping to go first?
I mean, I can't. I enjoyed it. Rating wise, it was probably a 3.5 4 star for me. It was just kind of, it felt like a good summer read, actually. It was a light summer. It kind of felt like a beach read to me, but with some surprising bite to it in terms of some of the socio justice issues that came up for the Armenian community. So that was something that kind of took me by surprise that I enjoyed. But yeah, kind of felt like a nice, like little light beach read, and I went through it quickly and enjoyed it. But it wasn't the, you know how I sometimes talk about the savor devour, like for me, and it wasn't quite a savor devour, but it was enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I could have given that same review. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I feel like that too. It's this perfect kind of like beachy kind of rom-com that was very like easy to read. And And like, it wasn't something that I'm like, oh my God, like this is like my top, book of the year, but I did enjoy it, and I liked the writing style, and yeah, it was a very quick, like smooth read for me. But I enjoyed a lot of the aspects of Chicago because it was set, at least PatCon was set there. And so it's fun being from Chicago to like hear them talk about all of the things and be like, yes, this is, I was like, this better be accurate. I am checking because I know she does not live in Chicago. So where is she getting these facts? But so that was fun. And yeah, just the kind of twists, like you said, Alicia, with the jobs and the family dynamics, and the whole competition aspect, which was really interesting because I haven't read something like that with like this from like a food point of view. And I mean, I've watched like food competitions with reality shows and with anime even, but not with a book. So that was a fun, something different to read.
So for me, I give this 3.5 stars. I, like you guys said, it's a light beach type of read, rom-com, which is not really my genre. I'm not typically for the light, fluffy romances, but it wasn't bad. It was easy to get into and a quick read because it's pretty short. I think the one thing I was thinking about that I was like, I kind of wish I wish the author had done dual POVs and we could have seen Vanya's POV, and what she was thinking. Because we're in the head of Nazali, for the whole book, which is fine. She did get a little bit annoying at times to me, but overall it was okay. But I thought it would have been interesting if we had that dual perspective. And then also, I don't know, I think because it's such a short book, and I think because it's such a short book, and it takes place over a short period of time. It's like a few days or a week, I think, that they're there for the convention. So it does feel like it did feel insta-lovey to me. So, and I much rather have a slow burn, but
that's like literally what I wrote at the end. I said, wish there was a bit less lust / insta love. Otherwise, enjoyed. That's what I said. Because I was trying to think. I was like, did I was like, did I miss something? Like, did I miss like a scene where there was more like like content or whatever before they started like really being into each other? And I was like, nope. So it was kind of funny because
yeah.
Did you get that sense, Alicia?
Yeah, that it was kind of like that, but I think I did kind of take it with the grain of salt of knowing that, it was a 3-day thing, like that we were pretty much getting the story over the 3 days, like, and but like I did kind of get that feeling. It would have been interesting, I think, to have seen a little bit more from Nazili's perspective of just like the understanding of why it wasn't just going to be rebounding, because she kind of brushed over it, but I think that might have made it feel a little less insta-lovey if she had really more explored just like why the commonalities of their culture were important to her and those kinds of things. And So yeah, I mean, I did get it, but I also kind of went into it thinking like that was probably going to be a lot of what we got. So in terms of expectations, I guess it was met, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, in comparatively to a lot of the things we've read, it is fairly short, right? Like,
Yes.
I mean, so there's not a lot of room for development, like
So true.
fully there either. Not that I feel like it was underdeveloped, but I agree with Vanessa's point that it might have been nice to see a dual POV for a little bit more of that development.
Since it was a like the confines of the competition, like it had to be that short, and that was how she made it, you know, as opposed to like, oh, we're away at summer camp for 2 months, or, you know, something like that.
Although I will say, I do think some parts of it is, I do think some topics she tries to tackle are underdeveloped and could have done more with. So, like Alicia was saying, they kind of brushed over the fact that this was like a rebound. She just had broken up with her boyfriend and then hadn't really had any time to, you know, grow or discover herself really before getting into a new relationship with Vanya. And she kind of says at the towards the end, she briefly mentions that, like, how she wished she would have had time in between the relationships before meeting Vanya. But that's, I think that was like one small mention, and then I think that could have been explored more. Like, you know, especially why, you know, I get that she has that connection with Vanya when they met and stuff. But I guess I'm also thinking, like, okay, why not start slow as friends and let that build up, rather than jumping right from one to the next.
Yeah, that I didn't even like think about that, like that she was kind of like a rebound in a way, like,
especially with all her insecurities she brings up. She had a lot of insecurities when she was with Kyle. What's his name?
Yeah, Kyle. Yeah.
She had a lot of insecurities when she was with them. And it's like, now that she's with Vanya, a lot of those insecurities almost magically have gone away. And we didn't get to really explore that with her. So I think in that sense, some of the topics here, I would say, were a bit underdeveloped and wish there was more to it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And what other things do you wish were like brought out more? We could talk about that.
Well, like I said, her just exploring herself and figuring out herself, and what she wants, her values and stuff. And, you know, the situation with her work, her, you know, standing up for herself at her work and stuff. I also think maybe one of the issues is, I feel like this was trying to touch on so many different things within such a short length for the book, because it's less than 300 pages. And, you have the situation at work with her coworker Jamie. You have her family situation, the family dynamics. You have the two families situation, their rivalry going on. Then you have the breakup with Kyle and getting into a relationship with Vanya. So I think there was a lot there. And I think if it was simplified and like focused on one or two main things, there might have been more room to see more of that development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I like how like I feel like a lot of things are wrapped up at the ends, like where like she did finally stand up for herself at work and realize like she didn't want to be the boss, and like, you know, or the director, and turned it down. And then Ellie's mom is actually working for Vanya's family with the new Mediterranean restaurant they opened up. So it's like, okay, there's like some resolution of the two families there, but it still kind of felt like, well, first they hate each other, they had to work together in some of the things, and then now she's helping them. So like, where did it still felt a little bit abrupt. Yes, Leash?
I was thinking, so like we're talking, you know, it is a little bit shorter, and we're all like, oh, it's so short. I mean, it's not that it's short, right? It's not an 150-page novel or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I think it would all translate really, really well, actually, to a screen. Like if this was a Hallmark movie, like in my head, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like it makes a lot of sense that all of that would be happening in a movie setting, or, you know, like a mini series, because you can explore more of those facets. It's almost like if it was either a Hallmark movie or like a season of those that it would not be out of place in terms of that. So I think that's a really like worthwhile thing of pointing out too, that just because it felt crammed in book wise, I think this would actually translate really, really well to a screen, because you do have more actors. You do expect things to be wrapped up in that time frame, even if it's, you know, an hour and a half or, you know, a season, right? Like you would expect to kind of see those things. And so I think it's worthwhile to know, because not all of us can do that. Not all of us authors have the ability to like take this kind of like overarching story and put it into 250 pages or so. And the pacing feel okay for us. And like, I agree that it did seem a little too fast, but if we're looking at it as the 3-day thing, I mean, Romeo and Juliet took place over 3 days, right? Like that's
so true.
I mean, you know, I've got to work in my Shakespeare reference at some point, right? But I mean, like if you look at all that happened in Romeo and Juliet, that's a 5-act play, right? And if you look at all of that happened over 5 days or 3 days, like that all is comparable. Yeah. So I think what we're saying is actually a good thing, even though it sounds slightly negative in that it was too much too soon. But we were saying we liked these characters enough that we would have liked to have seen the development. We would have liked to have seen, but we all, I think, like doing character development. I think that's something that we all really like as writers, because we all are. That character arc is something that we talk about. And we talk about that in a lot of our previous DIL discussions, that, you know, we like seeing this development and we like seeing these kind of longer pages and how that development interacts. And so I think it makes sense why we're missing it, because we all saw this as a moment of like, we were seeing it as the shard of glass, like impetus for all of this character development. And we're used to getting to see that carried through.
Mm-hmm.
But in beach reads, that's not always the point of it, right? Like it is a romance. It's not always the point of it. So,
and we don't have very many books that we've read with DIL where we've said this is a beach read, which is why the trigger list is so short.
Yeah.
But the thing I was thinking is, you brought up a really good point with that it would be good as a movie, because I was actually thinking about that with like the first mission where they had to do the arrangement of the platter. And so I'm trying to visualize it. And I was like, man, this would be really cool to actually see. And that's why food competitions are, and maybe that's why that's not as much something that we read, because it's more of like a visual thing. So that's really interesting. I think that it would be good to see on the screen with the whole like, hey, we're making this like kind of like a reality show, and that aspect of it, but especially with the food and just the arranging of it and making it would just be really cool to see visually.
Yeah. Speaking of the food, I wish we would have gotten a recipe or two, like in the back. Like, hey, here's my family recipe for lavash if you wanted to try it. Or like, for more Armenian recipes, please go to this, like, QR code, like cookbook or whatever, right? Like,
I wonder if it was like a pre-order,
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe it's something that was like a pre-order campaign. I'm going to say Lavash at First Sight recipes and see if anything comes up.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, like, I think that would have not been out of place, right?
Yeah.
Like to see those. And not that we would have tried it, but because I'm not super familiar with Armenian food, right? They list some of those ingredients, but I also will admit, like, I didn't necessarily have the time to go look and see what Armenian food, like, looks like or whatnot. Now, I've had Mediterranean food, so that's kind of where my mind went, like, in the first place. It's like, okay, so it's probably like some of these things, and I love Mediterranean food, right? But like, just to kind of get some more of that culture brought more to the forefront.
I did look up, what was it, Monty, I think, because was that the one where they both were the families had to work together? Was that the one with the Monty? And it's like,
I think so. And that was the one that Hera was like flirting with the judge and was like, here's my Monty for you, and she like brought.
So I did look that up, and Lavash, but yeah, like, because I don't know about any Armenian food. Like, saying that, I'm like, I have no idea what this is, what it looks like. So yeah, that would have been cool to have like recipes and stuff.
Especially because it was a cooking competition, right? Like, just to even see like, oh, the winning Lavash recipe or like whatever it was, right? Would have been kind of interesting to see there, because we were getting so much other cultural touch points.
Right.
But I mean, because we are going to talk spoilers, and we're far enough in that I feel like we can now.
Yeah.
I was disappointed, but unfortunately not surprised that neither Nazali's or Vanya's families won.
Yeah, but technically,
yeah, I mean, technically it was a
they were supposed
TV,
to win.
Right? But I mean, I think there's some accuracies, unfortunately, there too, right? Like there's things that need to be overcome because the Armenian food isn't saturated enough in the market, and
Hi, Raf, by the way. Lavash sounds great. I was like, I'm hungry now. Because any sort of bread, like roti, or I'm like, oh my gosh. Just yes.
Just yes. Exactly.
Oh, sorry, you could continue. With the tossed sauce one, the Italian. Yeah. But that it was rigged. That was such a twist that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
But
I will also say though that one of the things that I think she did really well is the fact that there was no bi erasure, right? Like it wasn't something that was there. Can you still hear me? I had to pause my camera for a second.
Yeah, I think you just froze, but you might come back. Because you froze, I just realized that your shirt has Minnie Mouse on it. I thought it was a different pattern. Oh. Maybe leave and come back, Leash.
Yeah.
If you can hear us.
And can you still hear me? Can you see me again?
There you go. Yeah, you're back.
Yes. Listen, I just got a text that the ice cream man is out front, so I'm hoping that I'll get some because he's here later than he normally is. He usually is here at like 2:30. So
Oh, that's fun.
if I end up with an ice cream cone, you'll know where it came from.
I just noticed that you had Minnie Mouse on your shirt because when you were moving, it just looked like this like cool pattern. And then when you were frozen, I was like, "Oh, it's Minnie Mouse." Sorry.
Of course it is, right? Like, could it be anything else? But the fact that there was no bi erasure, I thought was really important, and I think we should definitely discuss that because even though it was a little bit of a rebound potentially for her, and like we do hope that there's the longevity with her and Vanya, and now that at the end of the story we understand they're living closer and like they've resolved to start over and try again, and all this stuff. I think it was important not only that there was no bi erasure from the characters themselves, but that it wasn't an issue in her and Vanya's relationship. I think it was important to have that fully expressed, which is another reason that it was a good pick for Pride Month, right? Because it was something that I don't know that we were expecting it to be or I don't know that we were expecting it when we kind of were voting, right? That it would have a bi main character. I don't know that was, I don't think I was expecting it. I don't know about anybody else, but I do not think that was something I even really realized until we got into it.
Same.
And like just kind of how that was all dealt with and the conversations of, like, hey, are you out to your parents? And are you, like okay, or not even okay, but like I am bi, like, like her saying those things, Nazili saying those things and leading those conversations. I think those were important to see on page 2.
Yeah.
Even though we wanted to see more development, I think it's really important to highlight that was good, strong development and a rarity, unfortunately, most of the time.
Yeah, and Vanya's like bi and pansexual, so
right.
That was cool that she said like, I'm not just bi, I'm pan too.
Right.
Which you don't, hopefully more as time goes on, but and both of the families were okay, right? Both of the families were accepting, which right?
Yeah, I think at one point Nazali's family was kind of like weirded out, I think is what she said by it, but they kind of like got over it or
did it. They just didn't want her to be with
when
Vanya.
she first came out, she said her dad was like, as long as you don't tell me any details, whatever.
Right. I was like, I don't know.
And her mom was the one. It took a little bit of time, but came around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I think that's also why it would be such a good on-screen representation, not just to see Armenian culture in a mainstream movie like this, but because her parents are very dynamic, it feels like, and so are Vanya's parents, and so is the like smarmy like host of the PACCON and all of that. So I think there's a lot of dynamic characters that would really translate well to screen, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And to like, I mean, because part of the reason that we want to have discussions in Diversity is Lit in the first place is to bring this platform, to use this platform to bring note to authors who are not as mainstream. But I'm trying to think like movie wise,
I don't know if I know of like an Armenian based culture movie that I could pinpoint on Hallmark, or I'm just using Hallmark because it feels Hallmark to me in that, you know, it's wrapped up at the end. It's a love story, right? And like there's the food competitions, which I know they've done some like food competition stuff before. So, but like it, and we've talked a little bit on Vanessa's channel. Sometimes we've done like diversity is lit film version or whatever, right? Like, and like, I think this would be such a cool one to see and talk about if we had a chance to ever watch it.
Yes.
I'm down. Vanessa's channel, right? Like,
yeah, we're already scheduled.
Right.
Yeah, that made me think about, because I just turned to the page where Benny's like, oh, like how you're better than the other Middle Eastern competition. You know, talking about the green falafel versus hogops. And it was like, oh, you know, that is such a thing that happens where it's like the POC is being pitted against the other POC. And it's like, can't we just be at peace and uplift each other? And sure, the families like were, you know, they had their rift, their tiff, but like, it was something where it's like, we should be building each other up. Like other people are trying to bring us down. And so like, we're the only ones who are going to be, you know, there for each other to like get our voices heard and get our food out there. So I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I liked best at the end was how they renamed it from Hagab's to Hera's, whatever, to her mom's name. And how her dad was just like so proud of it. He was like, no, I've had my name on it for 20 years. It's always been your mom's stuff anyway. Like it reminded me of Peppa and her husband in Encanto, right? Where she's like on our wedding day and she's like, are you telling the story or am I? But he's like, I'm sorry, my life, go on, you know, mi vida, go on. Like just this man who is so proud of his beautiful wife and like the way she cooks and the partnership that they seemed to have makes me think that there must be something that our author saw in like a real life dynamic that she based that on, which I think is a good way of kind of maybe turning some of that perception on its head, right? Because I don't know that I know enough about Armenian culture to make an adequate guess about how the marital structure works in terms of like, is it more of a patriarchal or a matriarchal line? I would lean a little more patriarchal if I had to guess, right? Mm-hmm. But some of these like feminist themes that were woven through and that are woven through the Armenian culture that we got. Oh, I was here for some of that. Let me tell you, like knowing that the guardian of Armenia, like what did they call her, Mother Armenia, and like she's like this justice, like angel warrior, and like, but that's like the symbol of Armenia. Like that's pretty cool, and I don't think we see a lot of that, right? Like even for the United States, like yes, it would be Lady Liberty. And that's interesting too, that you think about like Lady Liberty, Mother Armenia, like that it's women doing justice work. Mm-hmm. But how often are the women not being given the credit for that?
Yeah. I did look, it says, traditionally it's like patriarchal. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So. But I mean, even if you go back to like ancient Greek culture, right? Yeah. Wisdom is Sophia. That's feminine, right? It's conjugated femininely. And so it's really interesting to see these pieces that are looking at this kind of feminist spin on it, right? Yeah. And I think that was part of what, hold on just a second. Sorry. Huh? No, you're fine. I don't have it. Maybe in my purse. Okay, my purse is on the box. He's asking about ice cream. Sorry. No, it's fine. I was about to say, is he asking for ice cream? Is he
yes, he's asking. He's like, do you have any cash so I can go try and get you ice cream?
was like, I don't know, it's probably my purse. Like, this is like, it's not the moment, except for it is because it's me and ice cream. So I apologize.
Food. At least there was food on the cover. I forgot about that. At least there's some.
Right. But yeah, like, so I really did like, because, and Vanya had the tattoo of Mother Armenia, or I might be mispronouncing that or misnaming it, but it was interesting to see those kind of like little feminine twists. And I did really like when they were out on their walk and they got the cupcakes, because I think I was anticipating that it was going to be a bad situation. Like, I think even the characters themselves thought, right? Like, they were like, hey, come here. Like, want to know about these cupcakes? Like, we had a whole like wedding party cancel on us, and we thought we should give them away, especially to a young, cute couple. Like, you know, like, okay, that was so sweet, right? But like,
that was cute.
But it's also indicative that I think there's more work to be done for, you know, the entire LGBTQ plus community. Right. That I, as an ally, was reading this scene thinking, oh no, this is going to turn traumatic. Right. Like, the fact that I even am thinking that makes me realize, like, no, like, it's still something that is necessary. Yeah. It's still something that is necessary to have strong allies. It's still something, and not that like, oh, it's become just so part of culture, like, that it shouldn't be, which of course we don't want anyone to feel unsafe in their skin. That is not what we're hoping for. But I think just acknowledging myself as an ally, that I was worried about that scene being traumatic. I was worried about that scene being something that was less than beach read feel, right?
Yeah.
I think that's important too, to acknowledge, because we like reading books in own voices stories because it helps people feel less alone. And if I can be worried about this couple walking down the street being like called over by a vendor, it's an important empathy reminder, right? Like as someone who doesn't live that reality, I think it's important to be on the lookout for opportunities to be a good ally, to interject and say those things. Because if I am worried about it not living that reality, I can only imagine how scary it could be being out in the world as a fully out person, as someone you love, right? Or with someone you love of the same gender. And so but I was glad to see that it was a kind of like meet cute moment rather than a traumatic moment of not just like, oh, these like women of color are together, but like they're being accepted, and you know, like, hey, here, you want some cupcakes from this wedding that we had that was canceled? Like, sure, we got cupcakes.
I will say that's one thing that I did really appreciate and like with this one was that, you know, it didn't have any of those traumatic moments, and it could just be a light, fun read, which is not, you know, whenever you get stories from a marginalized group that's published, more often than not, it has some sort of trauma in it. And while those stories are good, it's, you know, we still need stories that don't focus on the trauma, and that do have more of the happy, you know, rom-com uplifting feel. So I did appreciate that with it. And when you were saying, Alicia, how you felt nervous for them in that moment, that scene, it reminded me of a TikTok video that I saw. I forget who this was, but he was basically going around the streets of New York and like asking couples that he saw walking by, "Hey, are you guys a couple?" And he would ask them how did they meet and
Aw.
what's how long have they been together, and just kind of their love story, and it's really cute. But he went up to a gay couple that he saw and asked them, "Hey, are you guys a couple?" And you can see the instant fear on one of their faces. Like,
Aw.
they didn't answer at first, and then when he asked the second time, the other partner answered. And then obviously it was okay situation because he asked, how did you guys meet and stuff like that. But just seeing that initial reaction, and everyone in the comments said the same thing. You can see that initial fear in his face when he was asked that, because so many times it does not end well.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful.
I've seen that guy do those interviews. They're always so cute and fun. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like not in real life, but I've seen some of the videos of those interviews.
Where does he do them?
I think just around New York, right?
Oh, New York.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, or just like wherever he is. It's not necessarily like only New York, I don't think, but I think it's just kind of like wherever he is.
Wherever
and
he ends up being.
if he pulls somebody. And I mean, I've seen him do all ages. Like,
oh, that's cute.
Yeah. Like, so I'm pretty positive it's the same guy. Like, because you never see his face in these videos, right? Yeah. But I've not seen the gay couple one, so I'll have to be on the lookout for that because it's worth seeing. Not that I want to see the fear, but I think, the more that we can help erase stigma, the better it is for all of us, right? It's not just for one of us, it's for all of us. So,
right.
Yeah. Couple other things I wanted to mention in this. Another thing I really liked about the story was how relatable her parents are. I don't know. I think this is just, maybe this is a thing with immigrant parents. Because when she was like, we don't talk for one day, which is enough for a Armenian parent to file a missing person report. I'm like, that is my mom.
Some similarities in Haitian and Armenian culture. Is your mom Haitian?
Yeah.
Is your mom? Yeah. Okay. Okay. I wasn't sure if I was right about that.
Yeah. So, like, if you don't hear from us, now they've gotten used to the fact that I'm just not good at calling or keeping in touch. But before, it's like, they'll call me like, I haven't heard from you. I'm like, it's been one day. I'm alive.
It's been 6 hours and I was sleeping 5 of them.
That's like, I texted Heather because like I sent her a whole bunch of things like maybe from like noon on Friday, and then I was sending her things like Saturday morning, and then I'm like, I just have like 5 different texts and pictures and things to her, so I'm like, are you okay? You haven't responded in half a day. And I was just like, just want to make sure you're okay.
That's so funny. But I think that also gets at a really interesting dynamic in the book, right? That Nazeli really worked hard to kind of get a little bit of independence for herself. Like she stayed in a different hotel and, like all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Vanessa, did you have anything else you wanted to mention? I didn't mean to.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say, when you were talking about the importance of representation earlier and the bi-representation, another representation that I thought is important, and I'm glad we're getting more of it. I don't know if either of you picked up on this, but I'm 100% certain Leslie has to be neurodivergent.
Oh, I would be very surprised if we found out she wasn't.
I would be surprised if she wasn't either. And that's what half of these tabs are. Half of them are like the signs of her neurodivergent. I'm like, yeah. Which, even though I said she was a little annoying at times being in her head, but I'm like, I get it. I think this is part of the ADHD, so
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Is that like, yeah, what were some of the examples? Because there's at least something I don't pick up on in this one.
Well, for one, the way she impulsively blurts out things sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and then she thinks to her head, "Oh my gosh, that was embarrassing," but she just like she can't help it. She just speaks without really thinking about what she's saying at first, which is what got her into trouble with that host.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's part of the impulsivity. And then her reaction after she broke up with Kyle, where she's like, he hates me, he hates being with me, he hates me. The logic is simple sound. I'm not talking myself out of it. He's doing it. He's breaking up with me now in the goddamn Wallaby conference room. Yeah, and this is right after we have her inner monologue of how great they are, how wonderful the relationship is. And now she's like, he hates me. And I'm like, perfect example of RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria.
Mm-hmm. I think also the way she describes some things, right? Like the squatting, her like the owner of the company, like doing squats with his ass in the air, and like he's doing victory squats.
So it's a lot of stuff like that. And it also how, again, with her reactions when she meets Vanya, how quickly she falls into that relationship and so deeply, because emotional regulation or dysregulation is a thing with ADHD, and tend to feel emotions a lot more intensely. So definitely see that with her. And in moments when she's like fidgeting and stuff, there was one part where I'm like, she mentioned fidgeting. Let's see where.
And even how she like almost forgets all the time that she's supposed to be working when she's at PatCon. Like it is out of sight, out of mind until she checks her phone, and then she has 97 Slack messages from her way too involved boss.
Oh God. Yeah.
But she's like, oh yeah, I gotta be up till way late. Like it's like that hyper fixation. I'm like, I gotta do it.
Yeah,
that's so true.
Also, the fact that she was like, she was so into what they were doing at PatCon and helping her parents and stuff, and she was like doing her work felt like such a chore at that moment, and I'm like, yes,
didn't any dopamine.
I'm like,
getting any dopamine, right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's just like there's not enough dopamine to do this.
That's so true. Wow. The other thing that I kind of liked, and so I don't know if this, I mean, like on the cover, like they look pretty slim, but at least like we know that, where is it? On page 17, Nazeli says, I mean, it's true I gained a little weight recently, but I thought that it suited me. Love weight, I call it, from being with Kyle. And when she's talking with Jamie, then she's like, you know what? On top of her delirious overstepping in this conversation, I hate exercise. Nothing about it has or ever will appeal to me. I don't mind casual strolls. I can walk for hours through the city if there are interesting things to look at, places to go. But being yelled at by a perfectly toned fitness instructor with fake lashes to embrace the burn is not my idea of a good time. Armenians as a whole aren't big exercisers. My parents don't work out, my cousins don't, my grandparents don't, and my great-grandparents were marched by Ottoman Turks through the Syrian desert with no food or water and left to die. So yeah, the survivors didn't go on fucking hikes after that. And so I loved that because I was just like, oh, this is so cool. Like, she's like, you know, oh, I gained some weight and, you know, I don't like to exercise, but like that was like accepted, and she like just like kind of moved on from it, and was so like I loved that was added in there.
Yeah. I do like that she like her Jamie's comments. First of all, her comments were so out of pocket about her weight. Like, what does this have to do with their job and presentation? And yeah,
and like toxic, right? Like just
yeah,
so toxic.
But I liked that she didn't let it get to her, or like let it, you know, mess with her in the sense that, you know, we didn't see her all of a sudden, you know, start restricting her diet or, you know, trying to exercise more or whatever.
Right.
Like you said, she kind of just accepted and moved on. And I think it's also a point we should mention about what she says about the HR thing, because I feel like that is something that is all too common but should not happen at all. She says, I would talk to HR about this, but I know what happens to people who talk to HR. Fired. Not right away, but eventually. You're labeled a problem person and they find a way. Besides, Melissa, the head of HR, is Jamie's best work friend. So I'm not alone, totally, I say. And so it's like, you know.
Yeah, there's such a bad, you know, reputation for HR because people believe, you know, people see it and believe it and think that, you know, every HR doesn't have their back. They're only out for their company and themselves.
Which is not how it should be, but
exactly. Yeah. Speaking of people being out for themselves, I don't know where I was going with that transition, but I was trying to make the transition because I forgot all about how Vanya is an author, and where she was saying that where is it? Some of our weird fairy tales are both English and Armenian language picture books. This vision to share our culture with this is on page 129. This vision to share our culture with the Armenian American diaspora with non-Armenian and Armenian kids. I already have 3 picture books drafted, but her face shifts downward. It feels like such a hopeless solo adventure. I have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, do I set up a Kickstarter? I'd rather get traditionally published, but who's going to want our stories? Oh, that killed me. And so I was really glad that like she was successful at the end, because I'm really glad that she touched on this, like, you know, yeah, I want to be traditionally published, but who's going to want to read it? And it's like, we have to be our own, like, advocators again, you know?
Again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, something else I was thinking of, because it's a couple pages after that, is so earlier when Alicia, you were talking about how you the situation with the cupcake scene you thought could have gone wrong. Another scene in here that I thought was gonna end up going bad, and I'm glad it didn't, was when they were um with, is it this,
The guys at the bar or at the
the guys at the bar that approached them, and they were like, we're together, and the guys were just like, oh, okay, and just kind of left. And I was glad to see that, but it's not something that would usually happen. So that was another scene that I thought it might turn bad, but it didn't.
Yeah, I'm glad we had like good endings to what could have been something that was more of a downer,
Mm-hmm.
There was enough like, lows and the highs. So did you get your ice cream lunch?
If only everyone could be like this.
No.
If only the world could be this way.
I know. I loved on page 253 when they were talking, or where is it? That guy, or I mutter, both irked by Benny and thinking Toros would like that opener. And then Bob, the dad says, "What you kids all say, douchebag?" Definitely, I say with a nod. I was just like, this is definitely one of the quotes I did. It's like, "What you kids all say, douchebag?"
Funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Dad. Yes, Bob. So, we're almost to the hour. Are there any other quotes or things? We had a lot to discuss in this short book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like things were opened because they were just kind of starting to reconnect again. Like I could totally see a sequel.
Yeah.
I was going to say I did kind of think that they would end up somehow working together.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because so Vanya did end up moving closer, or she was just visiting.
I think she moved closer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. And anything else?
We'll be happy to look for Teresa and Heather's thoughts in the replay or in the comments later.
Yes, for sure. Okay, just making sure because Oliver has really huge eyes and is looking over here, and so I'm like, there's no bug or bee, is there? Not when it's raining. Okay. But yeah, so if anyone has any other thoughts they would like to share, you can put it in the replay comments or in the Goodreads forum, specifically for Lavash at First Sight, which is linked down below, in our Goodreads hub. And next month, or no, not next month, this month is Disability Pride Month. And we are reading another romantic contemporary story. Sorry, Vanessa. But it is Love from A to Z by S.K. Ali. And this has multiple sclerosis representation. So I'm really interested to read this because I have not read a book with someone with MS before. And we will be discussing it early next month. So please start reading that. Check out the messages for a discussion link later in the month. And thank you for joining us. And we will see you guys next month. Bye.
Bye.